Welcome back to another episode of Get Hooked Podcast. I'm Yvonne, and of course, I'm here with my amazing co-host.
It's Dennis. We're back and we are live and we have video this time. Check us out, guys. I can see you. You can see
We
me.
do. Stepping our game up. I like
Yeah.
it. I like it.
Looking
Yeah.
forward to
So,
see how this comes out with some video. This is going to be cool. You
yeah,
actually you
I
get to
know.
interact with us a little bit more as well.
Yeah. We'll still release the audio one so that you guys can listen to us while you're on the road because we want you to be safe. Speaking of safe, June is National Safety Awareness Month.
Yes, it is.
And yeah. And I'm like thinking, man, we did this last year and it was a great episode. So this year, of course, we want to run it back and continue the conversation on safety. We have a great guest lined up. But of course, we want to talk about safety and what that means for the tow industry.
It's also the 25th anniversary of the National Safety Month that is run by the NSC, the National Safety Council. They've been doing this annually for 25 years now. This is about not just roadside workers. This is about workplace safety in general. This is warehouses, repair shops, anywhere where you need to be safe while you're working, where there's manual labor happening. National Safety Month is here to talk about making sure that you, your employees, your team, your customers, and everybody else along the way is safe.
Yeah, gives us an opportunity to help prevent unnecessary injuries and deaths at work, on the roads, and in our homes and in communities. So in this episode, we want to walk you. Through a few things, but one of the things is we want to make sure that you walk away with information you need to make sure that not one more person doesn't make it home to their family. We want to make sure that you have all the information that you need to do one thing in your business or in your life differently to make it safer. And not just in the towing and roadside industry, but in general. So
There's a million things you could do out there to be safe, and if you just do one more today, you may go home when you may not have. There's ways to be safe on scene. There's ways to be safe while driving. There's ways to be safe, while you're in tow. There are ways to be safe when you're hanging out at your repair shop or back at your yard. There's ways to be safe when you're climbing in and out of your truck. These are all important things. We're going to talk a little bit about some of those options, but really there is this safety ecosystem that we want to be a part of, and we want to help build around you and around our network.
Yeah, and some of the things we're going to talk about in this episode is especially how there's new technology out there that's designed to help the consumer, if you will, be safer on the road, and what that looks like and how it contributes to like a safety mindset. I know for me, and even you as a tow operator, you yourself when you're not in your truck, you might be just driving, on a when you're not working, and you were then at that point considered a consumer. What are the things that are in your car now that is built in to make you have safer options? And so we get into a little bit of that in our conversation a little bit later, but I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about that before we bring our guest on, Dennis. I've been seeing more and more conversation around that tech, around the future vehicles, autonomous vehicles, tech in the cars that make things a little bit safer. I know we talk a little bit about like the alerting systems for, put your seatbelts on, or watch how you're drifting in and out of lanes and things like that. How do you like that tech?
Well,
how do you like those features?
One thing I want to ask all of our listeners to do right now, if you're in your car, you're in your truck, you're in a vehicle on the road right now, I want you to look up at the roadway first, more than anything. Make sure you're looking at the roadway. But when you get a second,
Please.
Look down, look at how many lights, how many gauges, how many sounds, buttons, how many things are in front of you that can be distractions inside your vehicle. The radio, your infotainment center, your GPS, your climate control. Every one of those things can be a distraction. We don't think about it that way, but every second you take your eyes off the road to reach down and lower the radio, or turn up the air conditioner, or look at your speedometer, or or your gas gauge, in your case, Yvonne, or
Mhm.
your tire pressure gauge. I don't know if that's something we can talk about.
You know what? It is. You know what? Forget you, okay? Because that is automatically alerted, so I don't have to go and look at it. Okay, if it gets low, it's gonna alert me.
But
Oh,
every one of those
goodness.
things really is a distraction in your vehicle, and it's the life we live. And you add cell phones and tablets and screaming children and upset spouses and all
Yeah.
that to the mix, and it really could be a
On top
recipe
of
for
the other
disaster.
things, yeah. On top of the other things, like I know we get into it a little bit later, but the other things that we add on, sometimes you're getting in and you're thinking about other things. I know I'm the first person who's guilty of this, where I've got in and I'm like, ooh, I might put makeup on in the car, or
Don't do
where I've
that.
like,
Please don't do that.
I know. I've toned that down, and I'm going forward. I definitely will not be doing that because that's so dangerous. Even to the point of like eating in the car, or just even like you guys know I sing, so like hitting that high note sometimes, you just like close your eyes and you're like, how dangerous is that? You know what I mean? You're
Even
distracted and like, just there's so many things you don't think about, but
just reaching down for the
um,
coffee in the cup holder.
just that one split second,
It's
yeah.
a hand off the wheel. It's a you're kind of side eyeing to see where the coffee is so you can grab it.
Yeah.
It happens. These are the lives we live. It happens to us every day. But we're going to talk in a few minutes with our special guest about some of the new technology that's out there to
Mhm.
yeah, maybe it's also adding some buzzers and bells and whistles, but it's going to help you stay more focused and hopefully help keep our operators safe and keep our roadside professionals safe, as well as our customers and clients as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking definitely more so on the driver side of things, and I'm talking driver as in the consumer, the the person that we're helping on the side of the road, but from the operator standpoint. And I haven't heard from you in a while, Dennis, but why don't you tell us of a time that you've had a close call, where someone maybe wasn't as safe, maybe someone was distracted and you were put at risk just simply because that someone wasn't paying attention, and it could have been a time where even that person put themselves at risk, because they were distracted.
Yeah, I'll say I spent many years working on the highways and byways of New York City, some of the wildest roadways in the country, some of the busiest roadways in the country, and arguably some of the most dangerous. I remember one time in particular. Standing on the side of Brooklyn Queens Expressway and trying to hook up a tanker and on a shoulder that was entirely too short for what we needed to do, and happened to be one of those afternoons where traffic was moving pretty nicely and cars are flying by at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, and your whole body tenses up when somebody gets just a hair too close, or if you're on the hopefully working from the non-traffic side of the truck. Most of the time we try to, sometimes you're not always able to, but if you're on that non-traffic side of the truck and you're between your truck and the wall and you can't always see the oncoming traffic, and you hear a noise and you can there's been times where I've come back around the front of the truck to find that my mirror was missing, or that
Wow.
there was a crack in the fender from somebody just getting too close. And that could have been me. That could have been me, or that could have been any other operator standing out there, you know, just trying to do their job. So it's such a dangerous, scary feeling to be out there just on your own with really it's you and the road. Um, you can put on, hopefully you guys are all wearing your safety vests and you have your lights on and everything else, and those are great tools to have, but it doesn't solve
Mhm.
all the problems.
Yeah, yeah, and I even have an experience of, I believe it was probably 11 years old, and it was me, my mom, and my siblings, and we were driving home from church, and I think it was a flat tire, go figure, and we had to pull over. But we're sitting there waiting for our operator to show up. They show up, and he's getting some information, and he's gonna pull our car up because the way the I think because of the way the car rolled, like they couldn't change the tire, they had to tow it. And so, this guy comes by and he just way too close. And, we all got really scared because of the way he swerved. And it just looked like he was like, I mean, just inches away from hitting not only our car, but the tow operator. And if he was just, even just a little bit over, he could have hit our car. And at the time, we were still in the car, so he could have hit our car and the tow operator. And that could have been really bad for us, for him. It just could have been such a bad situation. So I'm thinking, now that we're having more of these conversations and I'm being enlightened by um, all the statistics and just the unfortunate incidences that happen for tow operators and consumers on the road, it's just you know, you're just amazed at the fact that there's so many things that are preventable that happen on the road. And so we want to take this episode to highlight that, and all the things that we can do to protect ourselves, that you as tow operators can do to protect yourself. Um, our guest, I should put it out there, we have an amazing guest, Tom Parbs, who's the National Sales Director of HAAS Alert, who's going to be our guest today to give us some insight of all the amazing work that they're doing over at HAAS Alert, and the device that they've put out now to help keep tow operators safe and first responders safe. And they're doing an amazing job. So looking forward to the information they're sharing. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit additionally on the back end side too, because we talk about um, protecting, safety, protecting on the front end, but what about on the back end? We don't really talk a lot about protection as far as um, accident scene management. So I want to get a little bit into that before we get into the
Yeah,
safety.
yeah. Uh, Safety is not just protecting your operator and your personal body out on the side of the road. It's about protecting your equipment. It's about protecting your business from unnecessary risk. Uh, what we hear a lot of times from our towers is that they're going out there and doing full scene documentation, especially on accident scenes and any
Mhm.
kind of large recoveries. Happens a lot more in the heavy duty world today than it does in the light duty world, but we're starting to see it expand to the light duty world as well. And providers, like, once they're getting on the scene, they're getting out there and they're fully documenting the scene. Where is the casualty? What position is it in? What does the roadway look like? What are the weather conditions? Um, you know, we use that data to really understand and assess the situation. And insurance companies and the folks that are really paying these bills at the end of the day, they love to have that data in front of them because it helps them understand the scenario and what caused the accident, and also what was required to recover it. That's why I said this originates really in the heavy duty world, because people really don't understand what goes into recovering a vehicle that's been involved in a major accident off the roadway, especially when you start getting up into large trucks, tractors, trailers, buses, things like that. But we are definitely starting to see it trickle down to the light duty level, because it's becoming necessary to protect your business. You could protect yourself from fraudulent damage claims that may come up, or
Mhm.
maybe we see plenty of times where customer didn't even notice a scratch or a ding or anything else on the vehicle until after it got towed, and it certainly wasn't the tower's fault. And if they documented it beforehand and they marked off the pre-existing damage, it helps fight those cases of sometimes there's some maliciousness to it, but a lot of times it really is just I didn't notice it before, but
Yeah.
somebody else had my car, so now I kind of checked it out and did a walk around, and I don't remember that scratch being there. I don't remember that nick in the bumper.
Yeah.
So really, just protecting your business from anything that can happen. But protect yourself from mayhem, like the
Yeah.
commercial.
I'm like, I got some, hey, protect yourself from me. I'm like, I got some scratches on my Jeep right now. And I'm like, if I
No, I don't.
find out who
I
did
don't
it,
believe you.
and I know I didn't do it. I know what you're about to say, Dennis. I don't go there. I did not do it. I
We're on video
promise.
now. I don't even have to say anything. I
Look,
just make a face. I can just give you a little side
I
eye, a little
promise.
eyebrow.
I did not do it. Okay. But I did walk around my car one day and I'm like, where did the scratches come from? And I don't, and the last time I remember seeing a scratch was, or the last person who had it was, you know, um, it was a valet. And so I'm like, well, was this with the valet? Or was this prior to the valet? Well, I don't know because I didn't know when the last time I looked at it, but I know for sure I didn't scratch it. Could have happened in a parking lot. Could have happened anywhere. So what I do know is that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when
Absolutely.
it comes to towing damage claims, a picture can definitely save you 1,000 or more dollars. So one of the things, we want to definitely hear from you guys is, are you and your operators being proactive during the course of a service? Are you documenting any damage that is noticed before the vehicle is touched or moved? We want to know because a lot of times motorists have cell phones and they're definitely taking video of your
Yep.
operators when they hook their cars up. So it's definitely essential that, service providers, operators, you safeguard yourselves. You take care of that. So that's something that at Honk, we're thinking about. We're taking a look at it. We know that damage claims are very expensive. And we know that that's a way that you can protect your business from liability is just simply by having on-scene photo capture. So thinking about ways to incorporate that in the app. Think about ways to help you out on jobs that way, and protecting yourselves 100% from false damage claims. So yeah.
Yeah, another thing we talk about all the time. If you've been following our Honk Live sessions on Facebook, you've probably seen our
Mm,
last couple of episodes. We've had some great industry experts as far as training and certification. We've had
yes.
Recmaster and TRAA and TowCert and ERSCA. And we've been having some really great conversations over there. So if you get some time, head over to our Facebook page and check that out as well. But we're talking about training as part of safety. You
Definitely.
need to protect you. You're as an operator, as somebody that's out there every day. You need to protect yourself. We can talk slow down, move over until we're purple in the face. We can take out all the advertisements we want. We can we can up all the penalties for the laws and make them as harsh as possible. You still need to know how to protect yourself when you're out
Yeah.
there in a danger zone. And
Yeah.
that's what we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes with our friend Tom Parbs over at HAAS Alert.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you do it. And even if you've been in this industry for, years, it definitely does not hurt. I mean, you can't stop the learning. We talk about it in our live, but it doesn't hurt to continue learning. Every day there's something new out there. Technology is vastly expanding and there's always something new to be learned, always a new technique. So definitely great to always have something to back up the skill set that that says you know what you know. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop into this conversation and get Tom on and hop into the
Yeah,
conversation.
just before we bring Tom on, Tom is a very very passionate individual, and he's just as passionate as we are, even more so about safety and protecting operators. And his passion really shows through, and he's just gonna talk to us a little bit about some of the products that they have and what Hustler's Safety Cloud mission is and what they're trying to do for the industry. And here to talk about safety is Tom Parbs from HAAS Alert. Welcome aboard, Tom.
Hey, Dennis. Hey, Yvon. Thank you both for having me on. I'm grateful.
Thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to this conversation. A lot of good stuff to talk about today.
Yes, I'm
Definitely.
excited.
Yeah. So grateful to have you on. And of course, we've been hearing so much of what you're doing in the industry and just so many great things, so many organizations that you're working with. So we're definitely delighted to have you on and hear about all the things that you guys have going on now and what you're working on in the future. So we know that being a tow operator is one of the most hazardous jobs in America. We know what the causes are. Why do you think the problem persists today? And why do you think the general public doesn't really know as much as they should about the risks that are posed to tow operators?
So that is a really good question, and you're 100% right. The reality is that being a tow operator, right, roadside assist organization, literally, it is the most dangerous job in America. You could take all of the private companies and combine them together, and the risk to a tow operator's life is still 15 times greater than that. So we all know that, right? At the surface level, it's a dangerous job. They're literally risking their lives every time they get dispatched. But the causes, right, we have to really understand those root causes. We want to solve a problem. You have to get down into the root causes of those problems so you can actually start making it better. And there's really a couple root causes of that. And first and foremost, you have to understand the way that consumer automobiles are manufactured, and they're always going to continue to be manufactured this way. It's been this way for years and years, which is why we keep seeing the problems get, worse and worse and worse. Or one of the reasons, those cars are designed not for the tow operator that's working the road. It's not designed for their safety. It's designed for the consumer safety, right? And so when you start to think about it, it's a very smooth ride. It's a very comfortable ride. It's a very quiet ride. If you get in your own personal vehicle and you turn the radio off and you roll up the windows, generally speaking, the outside is kept outside of that vehicle. So things that are going on outside of the vehicle aren't designed to get inside of it, right? Because it's all about the consumer. So as we make vehicles safer for the consumers, as we make them smarter for the consumers that are out there, unfortunately, it's making the roads deadlier and deadlier for the people, our towers, that are actually working those roadways. So if you think about it, like just kind of quickly, people are in their own little world. They're in their own little bubble when they're inside of those cars, right? So they're and the second problem is people are distracted. Now, people have always been distracted. This is not a subject that, oh my God, people have cell phones and they're distracted. Like this, they've always been distracted. What I think many people, especially in our industry, kind of need to also understand that texting is a problem. I get it, right? Especially for the younger generations. But also note, people are literally doing their makeup when they're in their car. They're shaving their face. Most of the people listening to this podcast that are working the roads, they see this every day. I've seen people clipping their nails, whatever it may be. But what you're talking about from distractions is there are visual distractions and there's cognitive distraction, which is like a brain distraction, something that's taking your brain power, right, away from good driving behaviors. And
even things just as simple as making sure the address is entered in your GPS or changing the radio station. Yeah, it takes your eyes off the road even just for a second.
Yeah,
it's a major distraction.
Well, and again, so it causes you have a visual and you have the cognitive, but, and I'll give you a good example to that point, Dennis, like the three biggest distractions that are inside of a car right now is the radio. And again, I say this with all due respect, but somebody that's driving, and if they're driving on the road and listening to a podcast, listening to music, listening to an AM sports broadcast or whatever the case may be, we all do it, right? I listen to music. You guys listen to music. I listen to your podcast. People are listening to your podcast. We're not doing anything purposeful. When you think about a brain distraction, we are not 100. Our brain is not 100% focused on, here's all the good driving behaviors that I need to do. We do it normally, but we don't realize it. And the example I'll give you is, you ever drive somewhere and you're looking for an address and you got your radio up and you're like, let me turn the music down so I can concentrate better. That's the perfect example.
Turn the music down so I can see better.
Yep. 100%. And so that's the easiest the way I can make it relatable. So people are listening to music. They're talking to their passengers. If you two were driving in a car right now, I'm sure you'd be having a conversation. You probably just don't sit there in uncomfortable silence. If you're like me, if you got kids, I got a 10-year-old, I got a 13-year-old, I also have a 15-year-old and a 20 and a 21-year-old. But let's say I have my kids in the car. God, I think I'm blessed that they're not fighting at each other's throat, right? But they certainly talk to mom and dad. So we're having conversations with people in the car, and those are big distractions. And so when you add the fact that people are in their own little bubble, right? The outside is designed to be kept outside in these really safe cars for consumers. They're distracted from the radio, from texting, from phone calls, from whatever it may be, talking to passengers. They just don't see flashing lights. They just don't see your tow truck, regardless of how big it is. They just don't see it. And the other problem, like you mentioned, like you asked me, like, why don't people slow down and move over? You also have to understand that over 71% of the American motoring public, that's even responsible drivers, they have no clue what the slow down, move over laws are. So you really have to look at these three things. Is you've got people in their own little bubble. They're distracted while they're in their own little bubble, and they have no idea, for the most part, what the slow down, move over laws are. Yeah. And yet our industry keeps saying, well, let's make our lights brighter, visual distraction. Let's make them flashier, visual distraction. Let's put signs and cones and things. These are all good things to do, but they're just not seeing it. And oftentimes, by the time they do, the studies show is they have 2 seconds or less to react, which is why many towers call it a kill zone, not a safety zone anymore. And those are some big problems that we need to tackle and make everything work together.
Yeah, you bring up
So
so many good points there. And, and I'm thinking about like the vehicles and some of the features, some of the safety features that are added on currently. Some of the things like lane guidance, if people are already being distracted, that they put in the lane guidance that tells you, hey, you're veering out of the lane, or, there's a car on the side of you. And so it's also tailoring people to be to start getting used to having these type of like indicators where they're no longer being aware, like cognitively aware of those things. It's like, oh, I have an indicator now that's going to tell me about this. So it's just like all those little things that are automatically added into the car, that I'm wondering if that also has some type of, bearing on like how much people are paying attention to the things that they need to be paying attention to, on top of, and this whole time you're talking too, I'm having flashbacks of that movie Minority Report, and how people, like people in the car and they're like taking naps, or they're just like getting in the car and then just putting in the destination and just being able to go, and the idea of like the autonomous vehicle being on the road now and then just pushing in a button and just going. And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering how all of that plays into, the awareness that we as individuals have while we're on the road, and if that's also contributing to the risks that are being posed to operators on the road.
So I think that's a very good thought process, and we're already seeing that minority report ish type stuff that's going on. Because I mean, look at some of the autonomous vehicles. I mean, I can't tell you how many news reports I hear about a driver. There's a driver in the back seat while his Tesla vehicle was driving 80 miles an hour, people sleeping. So we still see that, although there is a big challenge in the autonomous industry that those vehicles, as smart as they are, they still can't recognize responders of any type. They still can't recognize those flashing lights. We can help them see it, hint, hint, but they still can't. They still can't. But the challenge, or pardon me, the thought process I think that you're really spot on with is you have to think about like this: those lane diversion alerts, or in some OEM manufacturers, if a driver has their eyes off the road for too long, like they get alerts inside of the car, your seatbelt alert. The theme that I want you guys to think about is the reason that the alerts inside, and it's usually an audible so they can hear it, and a visual so they can see it. So maybe they see both, maybe they hear one, they don't see the other. You understand where I'm going with that. The reason that these have been so popular, or why the seatbelt alert was literally made standard in 1974, right? Even after the seatbelt law was enacted in 1972. The reason they've been so effective is because even if somebody doesn't know what they need to do, you just grab their attention for a second. This is what you got to do. And guess what? They actually do it. And that's why, like with seatbelts, that alert has saved millions of lives since it became standard in 1974. And that's why OEM manufacturers are putting these little tiny alerts. Not that it distracts them, because studies show that little audible visual alert that just gets their attention for a second is not a distraction. It's actually less distracting than seeing a speed limit sign. A speed limit sign is more distracting than a quick alert that says, hey, pay attention.
Yeah. And I know we'll talk about this a little later on, but, and that's some of the things I'm really looking forward to. And what this episode is really about is, the technology that is coming out is designed to create more safe practices. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I did come across an article the other day about how they're designing autonomous vehicles to create more safer habits. And so I'm like, that's interesting. Yep. So, I'm really looking forward to that, because I do believe that ultimately technology is designing more safer techniques and practices. So I'm looking forward to, the transition for that. Dennis, I think you were gonna make a point there.
Yeah, no, the chime, that the blinking, the buzzer, the chime that you're talking about with that seatbelt, I think if nothing else, I mean, people want to stop the buzzing. They want to stop that annoying sound, which more than anything gets it done. It gets people to start using their seatbelt, because you just don't want to hear the beeping or the buzzing or the sound or whatever, noise your car makes. I know, if I go take a ride down to my mailbox without my seatbelt on, my car will chime the entire way there and the entire way back.
Mine does too. And like within I hop in the car and I'm like backing out. It's like, boop. And I'm like, dang, can I get out the driveway?
Yeah. So Tom, I think the important thing there is you're correct. So even for the people that don't know and they find it annoying, they just want it to stop. here's the benefit. They still took the action that you wanted them to take, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you think about it more from, if you dive deeper behind that, you do it enough and you don't want to hear that enough, your first action is you're going to put your seatbelt on, right? Just kind of like slow down, move over. You get an alert to slow down, move over, and you don't want to hear it anymore. You're just going to automatically have a habit to slow down and move over. So it is indirectly also creating a very good behavioral habit for driving, of putting seatbelt on, staying in your lane, slowing down, moving over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Tom, you mentioned lights and cones and stuff like that. What traditionally really is safety on the side of the road? What do we have existing right now today?
Sure. So, for years, the answer to these risks and these dangers and these problems that towers and road workers have faced, for the most part, has been, let's put lights on our vehicles, which are important. I want to make sure that I'm very clear when I talk about these things that we're doing today. I don't want to get rid of any of them. I want to make them all work together so people get home safer, right? But the industry answer to these problems is, let's make our lights brighter. Let's make them flashier. Let's put,
more lights,
strobing LEDs all over. It looks like it's a concert on the, the truck is, going to a rave. I say that jokingly, but I mean, it just what it looks like. The challenge with that is that the moment somebody turns on lights, you have just increased the risk of getting hit. Study after study shows that you turn on lights, you become a bigger magnet. Now you have to use them, and I completely understand that, but it's adding to the risk of getting hit. In some cases, it increases the risk almost 50% more. So we have to use them, but it's not really making us safer like we want. So then we're using high visibility clothing. Keep doing it. Now, most of the towers, and I work with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds across the country, and I know they're serious when they say it, but they say it with a chuckle. Yeah, they see my high visibility clothing when their headlights are on me and I'm diving out of the way, right? They don't see your big, huge truck with big flashing lights everywhere, but they're going to see your high visibility clothing. Like, they'll see the truck first before they see the clothing. So you got to keep using it, but that's what we've been doing, like making ourselves more aware. Now, keep using your signs, keep using your cones, keep using your flares. I think all too often we try to add all of these things at the scene, which just makes it even more distracting. Or kind of, if you follow like kind of the moth to the flame theory, the moth theory, we create this huge thing to stare at and people tend to drive at what they're staring at. You know what I mean? So I think in our efforts, these are all good things to deploy, but they haven't been working. And what I mean by that is the problem keeps getting worse and worse. We lost more people last year, right, than we did in 2019. We're at 22 deaths this year. We already have every day, I think it's 5 pieces of equipment are damaged, are hit. So there's some type of collision. I think every 2 days we have 2 or 3 tow operators that are injured, sometimes critically. And I think right now we're averaging every 6 days, it's about 1.5 to 2 responders are dying, not coming home to their families. So we're deploying these things, and it's not working. And not that they're not useful. I want to make sure I'm very clear on that. But they're not solving the problem the way that we'd like. You know what I mean? And so then what we do is we jump over, right, to, well, let's have these laws. Now, I'm a Marine. I love the laws. I love our country. I literally swore an oath to my country, so I get it. But people need to understand that a law is not a preventative. It doesn't stop something from happening. Here in Illinois, where I live, we have Scott's Law, right? If you were to strike somebody and kill them, and you see these signs often, right? Strike a road worker, you could be punishable by $10,000 fine up to a year in jail. And let's say we enforce that. I know we have a challenge with enforcing, but let's say we enforce that and we put a motorist in jail for a year. Does that bring your husband or wife back? Does that bring the mom or dad back to the kids that are waiting for mom or dad to come home? So they only work when something has happened, and oftentimes when the worst case scenario. So we have to make those work better too. But if you guys are kind of following what I'm saying, we've got all this stuff we're doing where the problem keeps getting worse and worse. And we've kind of got this big gap to these laws that can only really work when the bad stuff happens. There's this big, huge missing gap that ties it all together. And that's what I'm trying to fill, that gap, and bring it all together so we get home safe to our families.
Yeah.
And The towing and roadside industry really is in a unique position in this world, because we're not police or fire where we can go out and shut down an entire roadway to clear up a scene. Most of the time we have to do our best to keep traffic moving. Most of the time we don't have the authority to shut down the roadway. We barely have the authority to shut down a lane or shut down a shoulder if we're hooking a disabled vehicle, or working on a disabled, or an overturn, or something like that. And we also don't have the luxury that the construction and roadside repair industry has, where they can literally barricade off lanes of highway for months at a time to protect their workers. And those guys are still getting hurt. So what does that mean for us?
Yeah. So, that's the challenge, right? And it goes back to what we're talking about. People often don't know about slow down, move over. By the time they realize or recognize maybe they should, many times it's either too late or it's at the last second. You know what I mean? And so you're correct. And so, the answer isn't let's just create all this distraction at the scene. That's the answer, in my opinion, is how do we make all of this stuff work together so the motorist, like your seatbelt alert, is aware upstream, a good distance upstream. So now they have time to pay attention, so they can see your lights, they can see your cones, they can see your signs, your attenuators. Like, we can grab their attention, right, and get them to start, right, remind them that they have to start slowing down and moving over. So now we can make the lights work. We can make, your high visibility clothing work better. And that's what I want to make sure I'm clear. Working better. None of these things are bad. How do we make it all work together, and how do we make it work better? How do we make it safer so that you can actually operate, do your job? Because listen, if you do, I understand on a heavy wreck, there's an accident, you're out there for 8-9 hours. I mean, every second you're out there, the danger just keeps increasing. So I get that there's often things that you can deploy, from shutting down a lane. You could maybe have fire, police that may be on scene with you, maybe DOT help. And like you were saying, Dennis, you can probably do some of those things. We still see accidents happen anyways. Mm-hmm. So certainly we want to make that better. But literally, to the tow operator, right? You've got a motorist, they're stuck on the side of the road. You either have to hook them and go, or you got a whatever roadside assist you have to provide them. There's not enough time to go and deploy a sign a half a mile away that's 7 feet tall, and then another sign that's 1,000 feet upstream, and then another sign that's 500 feet, and then start the cone. Like, it would take you 3 hours to deploy that, to do a 10-minute, hook and go. So you can't. So you're at risk. And so that's my point here, is even in those situations where you can't close off a scene like a heavy wreck, how can you make your lights and your high vis and all the TIMs and safety training that you're doing, which I absolutely love and respect, and keep doing that, and your signs and your cones that you may, or your triangles that you deploy, how do you make it all work together so you can do your job, get your customer out of there safer, and get yourselves out of there safer, and everybody gets home safer? That's what I think we need to do to help.
That's the mission.
Make it all work together.
Yeah. Everybody needs to get home safe. That's the goal.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely. So, that leads me to my next question is, and of course we always want to know, is give us a brief breakdown of how does the HAAS Alert system work, and how does it fit into this mode of how you're going to make the road safer with that technology?
Yes. So that's a very good question. So I'll keep it simple. I'm very passionate about what we do, right? It's that my mission, saving more lives, getting people home safer. I live and breathe that, because we mean it. But in the easiest way to explain it, if you have the HAAS Alert, what we call Safety Cloud, our service is called Safety Cloud. If you are deploying the HAAS Alert Safety Cloud, the moment you activate your beacon switch or your emergency lights, and this is whether you're a tower, roadside assist, DOT, work zone, fire, police, EMS, you guys get it. But let's talk specifically tow. You activate your safety beacon, your beacon switch, so your safety lights come on. We create a cloud of safety around you and your truck. When you pull up to your customer, that safety cloud is also around your customer, because remember, they're at risk too. And very easily said, we literally, remember, the answer to tie it all together is, how do you get inside of the vehicle? We get an audible and visual alert inside. We break through the barrier and get inside the vehicle with the motorist, and we say, hey, tow truck up ahead, please slow down and move over. So it's that simple alert, audible and visual, on their phones, in their in-vehicle dash system. When we realize not everybody has an infotainment system, but most everybody has a smartphone. But we're getting inside the vehicle, we're grabbing their attention, and we're doing that even at high speeds, 30 seconds which is about at 70, 80 miles an hour, is about 2,650 feet or half of a mile. So for our listeners, to make this relatable, take 9 football fields and stack them end to end. That's when we break through the barrier. That's when we get their attention. That's when we tell them they have to slow down, move over. And that's when we start seeing that the motorists begin to slow down and move over. And it actually reduces the risks that our towers face on the side of the road by as much as 90%.
To interrupt you there. So just to kind of break that down, you said 9 football fields in comparison to like the 2 seconds that they normally would have. That's 9 football fields worth of like timing to make a decision to get out of the way. That's
Yep. 30 seconds versus 2 seconds. If you look at it from timing, you're probably talking 100 feet to 2,700 feet difference.
Wow.
So we want to take that kind of kill zone, as towers call it, right at the scene, and create this huge safety zone upstream that they're already slowing down and moving over. And if they can't move over, they're already slowing down as they're going past that scene safely.
Yeah. Now I know, we talk a lot about insurance companies, especially in this space, and how that relates to, how they write their policies and how, and that's one of the hugest costs for a tower and
It's
operator.
the single largest cost, other than maybe unless you're going to buy a rotator this year. Your single largest cost will likely be your insurance payment for the year.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's, that's on the front end, and we're not talking about if, God forbid, you have a claim, right? So, but that's probably right. Why, right? Because if you do have a claim, then that could be easily one of your biggest costs as well. So how does that fit into, how an insurance company would look at a tow business and say, what type of safety technology do you have to mitigate risks? How does that whole, how does the HAAS Alert system, but not even just that, just technology, safety technology and safety practices play into that role of creating better costs and risk for tow businesses like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I speak to this all the time, and especially with like my clients as well as, potential clients. And I'm actively engaged with several insurance agencies, not just from a liability standpoint, but also from a workers' comp, standpoint. Because even with workers' comp, right, if you have an employee that is injured critically on the side of the road, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars to your business, even with workers' comp insurance. Obviously, a lot more if you didn't have it. So obviously have it. So we know that's expensive. And we know from liability insurance. And so just high level, and I can't mention their names because we're still trying to negotiate. I have a few insurance agencies, like in California, Colorado, Florida, Michigan, just as an example, that we're kind of discussing ways that, hey, we'll write you the policy and we'll give you this discounted policy versus, some of the others that are out there. If you have HAAS Alert on there, because from an insurance standpoint, they're all about risk mitigation. So, we all know insurance companies like collecting premiums. We get that. You know what they dislike? Writing claims checks. So if you have less claims, whether it's liability, whether it's workers' comp, whatever the case may be, you're technically more insurable to them. So that's some of the conversations we're having. Now, I want to admit, or probably I want to be transparent. None of the insurance companies that I'm talking to, or none of the insurance companies that are out there, actually offer any kind of premium discount if they have our product. That's the other thing that I'm trying to approach with them is, yes, I know you like collecting premiums, don't like writing claims, but listen, if you have less claims, maybe you can cut them a break. It's all win-win for everybody. So I'm approaching it from a couple different angles, but let's talk about the current state, like what's happening now. Every insurance company I'm talking to is looking at, is that tower insurable, right? And we know that oftentimes for want of a better term, the localized insurance providers or underwriters can provide a better rate than like the national plans. Usually those national plans are 3 to 4 times more expensive. And so you have a few things. So you have, they want to look at your risk scores. So do you have a higher risk score or less? I think with our safety device and our safety cloud, we help you lower your risk score to an insurance provider so you're more attractive to them. I also know that in talking to a lot of tow operators through social media and then like actual face-to-face, and phone conversations, drivers are more inclined because they know, one, the ownership cares about them, and two, the ownership is doing everything in their power to keep them safe versus, let's say, the competitor tower. So we know that driver turnover can also impact scores, and drivers love HAAS Alert. They love knowing that they've got everything that they can to tie it together to get home safer to their family. So we help in those particular instances. And then, quite frankly, right, less claims. And I think that you have a lot of negotiating power when you can go to your insurance provider and say, look, I'm a lower risk for you. I've got less driver turnover. I didn't really have as many claims. I think you have a lot of leverage to go to your providers to say, this is why, you should save me for some money. So I think, while I don't have anything set up to get a discount right now. And I'm having those discussions, and for any insurance provider that's listening, we should talk. This would be huge for you too, as well as for your customers, and stand that insurance company apart from even its competitors. So let's write some more policies together. I think it provides a lot of business protection, that it's worth it to do it. So the question is not, why should I do it? It's really, most of my towers say, why not? Like, why have you not done it yet, is what they're looking at, because everything else that happens in the future is just going to be icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm. And when we look back at the industry 10, 12, 15 years, GPS was not common. You didn't have fleet tracking, 10, 12 years ago. Not everybody had it. And insurance companies really didn't care about it until they learned that it could reduce claims. It could help you find a truck that got stolen that maybe shouldn't have been where it was supposed to be. And they're using this technology now to help calculate your risk score. If you have that technology now it does reduce your risk score. Cameras in the trucks 5, 7 years ago, there was no such thing as that. Drivers had their own cameras that they would potentially, throw on the dash and, record their day. And, GoPros came around and guys would throw them up on their boom and take some cool videos driving down the road. But now you have entire fleets with dash cams facing outward and a camera facing inside to record what your driver's doing, what your passenger's doing. Keeps everybody safe. And, in the event of accidents, it's saved lots of money. I talk to friends all the time that they tell me, somebody tried to make a claim that they cut me off and ran into the side of my truck, and the video proved otherwise, and I was able to save the claim. So this is really just that next step, is having that warning device now. Yep. Should move in that direction. So it does take time for these things to move, and insurance companies are, they're typically large companies that it takes time to make big decisions, and it takes time to pivot, and it's like turning a tanker in the ocean. But when they find out that it is cost effective, they typically move towards it. So hopefully we can steer this in that direction as well.
And to your point on that, Dennis, and that's an amazing point. Like I foresee, and this is just my opinion, I don't have a crystal ball. I foresee that, yes, it may take some time, but think of it this way. All the towers and all the organizations that were getting the telematics or the GPS trackers and the outwards and inwards cameras weren't doing it for, like, I want a discount on my insurance. They were doing it to protect their business.
Yes.
They were doing it to protect their employees, right? And so even if they weren't getting a discount, they were still doing it because it made sense to protect their employee, their customer, their business. And that's really my position with, our safety service, right? Safety Cloud. Let's protect the business. Let's protect the employee. Let's protect your customer. And then
let's protect that equipment. We're talking a $200,000 piece of equipment. Why not put something on there that can save damage to that truck? Best case scenario in a struck by is that the operator, customer, everybody's okay, and truck gets hit or a car gets hit. But if we can prevent that too, prevent those claims, prevent that headache of being down a truck and all the other things that come along with that.
And it's still.
You brought up a good point, and I had to think about this, but and you might have covered it too, Tom. But Dennis, you mentioned like cameras and video capture, and I'm wondering, also the amount of people who are getting struck, right? Like we talk about like struck bys and things like that for operators, but I'm wondering, how often, when people arrive on scene, of course, and it's a separate thing when you arrive on scene for like accident scene management, taking photos and video and things like that. But then I'm thinking, well, if you're involved, if you're someone who's getting hit, like how do you even be able to, if do you have any technology to capture that when you're on scene? And then does HAAS Alert, you guys have video, picture, anything like that attached to your device currently that covers anything like that?
No, we do not.
Okay.
You know, our focus is really around the digital alerting and grabbing people's attention, really the safety alerting aspect of it. That doesn't mean, right, we're not always forward thinking. That doesn't mean something could happen in the future. We have no plans for that. But I want to share with you, there are some really great companies out there that already do that well. Like, no one really does what we do. I mean, we have one or two competitors, but nobody really does kind of what we do. So we don't want to get into somebody else's space and try to reinvent the wheel. They're doing it well. Like, and I'm just using this as an example because there's some of our partners, like Verizon Connect does it well. Samsara does it well. Geotab does it well. Webfleet does it well. You know, these companies do the telematics and the video capture, right? Really, really well. Well, they can't do what we do. So we've partnered with them. So if you have their equipment, right, go to these experts that have this great equipment. If you have their equipment, I can just literally turn on my safety cloud with their service. So we don't need to go reinvent the wheel and try to get you to buy this equipment and that equipment. You're already dealing with that with probably, I think, what, there's at least 126 types of companies out there that do that. So you've got your choices galore. So, you know, if you're using them, like, don't make us be another option. Just have us be that safety option that you can add to the equipment you have. Does that make sense?
Well, I love that. Like, you can always double up or triple up or quadruple up on all the safety options. You can have safety alert, and you can have camera, and you can have high visibility gear. It's like you can never have too many safety options at the same time and make sure you're fully covered.
It really,
at all times.
It really is about, it's creating, like Tom said, a safety bubble around you. And, you know, this is just one of those things you can add to that toolbox, as we talk about all the time. It's a tool in your toolbox to keep you safe. And, you know, whether that be adding cameras and adding telematics and, you know, adding some flashier lights, by all means, add some flashier lights, but also understand what that does and understand how the rest of this stuff all works in conjunction, and how there is an ecosystem to protect you.
Yes. Create that harmony. And to your point, Yvon, you know, we don't want to be a telematics company. We want to be the best darn, you know, safety alerting company, right? Roadway, make our roads safer, right? Our vision is a collision-free world where everybody gets home safely. That's our road workers, as well as the motorists that are driving on there too, because they're at risk as well, right? Yes. I mean, people need to understand, for every one like responder we lose, there's generally 3 motorists that we're losing as well. So this isn't just a road worker problem. This is a motorist problem. It's a big thing. But to your point, you know, about that, like my device, literally, we have free fleet tracking that we're not even a telematics company, but there's free fleet tracking that just comes with my device. A lot of towers love that because they don't want to have a bunch of equipment. We get that. But if you already have, and we're not the fancy, right, telematics, it's where's my vehicle, where is it going, where's it been, where's the direction, where are they within 3 feet, and is my dashboard updating every 2 seconds? It's darn near life. Yes, that's just a byproduct of our safety device. But you don't have to use our device. If you already have a telematics org like the ones I mentioned, we just turned it on. So you're 100% correct too, Dennis. Like, how do we make it all work? Like, that's the goal. Make it all work together, because it hasn't been working together, right? And it's like, what's that missing puzzle piece? Or I jokingly tell people, if you've made a cake, and you're like, why does this cake not taste too well? Like, it's tasted so terrible for so long. Oh my God, I forgot to put eggs. We're the eggs to the cake recipe. We're the missing puzzle piece to that. Like, it's not the replacement of, it's the addition to that makes it all work in harmony. So you get home to your family.
Yeah. And I gotta imagine that, you know, we've been talking so much here lately about ways to continue to create avenues for the entire industry to continue to work together, to just meld together and create a space for this entire industry to move in one direction together. And so I know that I can imagine that it would just make huge waves if every tower you know, was on the same page in the same book. So I know you're working very closely with tow associations and building relationships with coalitions and so many different partners and affiliates, organizations within this industry. What have you gained from those relationships so far, and what do you think is going to come out of that? Like, what are your plans for the future with those? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, so great question. Let me first start by saying it's amazing to see all the efforts and hard work that goes into what the associations do, not just from a leadership perspective, but just really the involvement by towers or members that are part of that association. They do great work, not just legislatively, but also for safety, and also to really get a sense of everyone's perspective of what's going on, right? To make things better, right? So it's really great to see that. And yes, I am literally most of the state associations, you'd see my name and of course HAAS Alert that's attached to it. And so I like that there's a concerted effort. While they may be different states, oftentimes one thing I know about the tow business is everybody's connected. I could literally get news to like the middle of nowhere in 30 seconds faster than I could even write a text. Like it's just, that's how quick, don't tell an operator, tell a tow operator, I think is the expression.
Tell a phone, tell a friend, tell a tow truck driver.
Yep, absolutely. So it's great to see that even though often at the state level, those associations focus on the states, there's still a concerted effort by many of the states to work together and how can we be better today than we were the day before, which is one of my life's mottos, right? So I love seeing that. And then it's also by being involved, not because I want to sell them anything, like I just want to make things better. So to be able to learn and engage and talk to the people that like are literally, like I said, just the towers that are part of these associations, it gives me a better platform. Because if I'm calling as Tom the salesman, right, even though there's never a hard sell. It's not so much of that open, transparent conversation is like, for example, next month, I'm going to the Michigan Towing Association. There's a picnic. Now I'm sponsoring all the kids' games and ice cream and prizes because that's kind of our mission. Let's get you home to your kids. But I'm bringing my family. I'm not going to have a booth. I'm literally to go have some great food, maybe have a few drinks with the people there. And I want to learn from them. I want to be able to see it from their eyes. So that helps me as I work with our leadership team here and the entire organization here at HAAS Alert. It helps us get better to better serve them. So it's invaluable for information. It's invaluable to support. It's really awesome to see how they're working together just within the state and then state to state. And then it's also great to see that voice kind of resonates with some of the larger, and what I mean by larger is kind of more the national, like ERSCA, for example, or TRAA as an example. And I'm just using those as an example, not that anyone is UMOBO. But again, I'm members of them as well and partnered with them as well. But it also, transcends into the rec masters and everything. So it's just great to see kind of this, if you think about it, take a step back, right? If you were to stand on the moon and look at it, it's really just great to see this kind of one voice that's being created, has been created. And I'm starting to see a lot more, like we talked about harmony in that message and that kind of banding together. And that one voice and kind of mission that we're all on is going to really make a difference in making things better for ourselves as towing operators and roadside assist organizations, but literally for responders as a whole, and also for our motorists too.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, that's who we're here to serve. We're here to make sure those customers get home and make sure that they are safe and make sure they get taken care of.
Yep, and I think that's something that we all need to. I had a really good back at the end of March. I went out to Mannheim, Pennsylvania, with the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Todd Lees put together a slow down, move over PSA event. There was about 150 agencies that came out. There was about 300 people. So we had fire, police, tow, state police, DOT, Turnpike Authority. I mean, there's a lot of us there. And I was actually chatting with Senator Doug Mastriano from Pennsylvania. He was out and they were presenting certificates of appreciation, and which I got one of those. And then they also because this was like on the eve of when Pennsylvania was increasing the penalties and really making their slow down, move over laws better. But I said, Senator Mastriano, I was like, you have to understand something. Everybody here that's a responder is seeing it from the responder perspective. We all get it. We want people to slow down and move over. But what about the constituents? What about the motorists, right? We are human beings. Often we care about the stuff that impacts us. So what we need to understand as responders is that while you see it from your lens of perspective, if people need to pay attention, remember other people don't necessarily see it that way. So why should they care? So I think often is if we look at it from why this matters to you too, and then, so to the constituent, the motorist that's out there, you die 3 times more often than our responder does. You should pay attention to that. But we're talking from I want people to slow down, me, and it's important. I'm not downplaying that in any way, shape, or form. But as responders, if we want to get the message out to the public, how does it impact them and why should they care? For the same reason of why we're here talking about why it impacts us and why we should care and why we want others to care. So let's see it from their lens of perspective. And that's going to help make that message resonate. And that means they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm a motorist. I want to get home to my kids. My kids are waiting for me. My wife, my husband, my kids, my family, my friends, my dogs, my pets are waiting for me to get home. I want to get home safely. So if I'm getting home safer and I'm driving safely, then that means that's going to benefit the responders too. So responders are driving safely. They're doing the safety stuff. And that's kind of that whole kind of connected harmony that we want to see. So just some perspective to share is we want to make a difference. We have to always see it from everybody's lens of perspective and why it matters to them so that they can see why it matters to us.
And to your point there, Tom, that 3-to-1 statistic, I don't know if that includes this or not, but motorists also, they don't want to cause accidents. They don't want to hurt people. Nobody goes out there and says, I'm going to take my eyes off the road today and, drive into somebody. That's not what people do. So we want to prevent that too. We want to make sure that everybody's clear as to what's going on out there on the roadway at all times. Yeah.
And so just to where I get that number from, there's a good colleague of mine who I know very well through Facebook, through social media, this gentleman, Jeff, and he's actually, when we can have the data, because here's a challenge about trying to understand the stats. There's no like central repository for this data. And oftentimes for insurance purposes, sometimes it's an accident or collision or equipment getting hit doesn't get reported. So when we talk about like every day, there's several pieces of equipment hit. Every 2 days, there's, 2 or 3 responders that are struck and injured. And every 6 days, we're losing, 1 to 2 responders on average. That's just what we know from the data that's reported. So Jeff did this really cool experiment. He's still doing it. He's taking real world information. But since April 2nd of last year, 2020, he's tracked from what we could find and what was reported on like the last 700 or 800 like actual responder involved incidents where whether they were moving or whether they were on scene and they were hit, whether it was the primary accident or the secondary. And it was like, I think when I get the 3-to-1, I think it was 650. And of those 650 accidents, like 200 of them there was a fatality on scene. And we know we lost about 46 people last year. Or just actually, if you take it from year to year, we lost like over 50, right? Because we've had 22 this year so far. I'd like to make sure that it doesn't happen again. That's the mission. But we've had 22 deaths so far. There was 46, I believe, last year. And then prior to April, I think we were at 18. So there was about 64 deaths out of 200 of those fatalities. So if you do the math, 64 responder deaths, those other 150, if you will, 146 other deaths, or 36 deaths, we're motorists. So that's where I'm getting the 3-to-1. Chances are, because we don't know what we don't know, these numbers are probably astronomically higher. Yeah. We just don't know. And the stats are on responder, like the equipment being damaged, the responder being hit or dying. It's probably worse than what we know because we don't have all of the data. Yeah. That's something we're trying to help with too, with legislation that we're working with our senators and our congressmen and women, to have the federal government create, the National Institute of Scientists create the central repository, because you got to get data. The numbers don't lie. You have to understand it, to really you got to be objective about it. That'll be helpful in the data to understand where our problems are, what's doing really well, so we can scale and repeat the good stuff, and we can actually tackle and overcome the stuff that's not working for us.
Gosh, man, that's such a good point. And, I'm so glad you brought that up. We have to we're gonna have to have you back or something to talk about this, because I just was thinking in my mind, like, slow down and move over. It's killing us, but it's also killing you, and
Yep.
that's the thing that the motoring public needs to know, is that like you said, we don't talk enough about, and I think people really would, they would pay attention more. And it's more just we talk about it hitting their pocketbooks, where and that being the thing, but really it's your life is literally being affected, and so that's one thing that we haven't talked about, and I personally haven't really understood until this moment, that is a huge effect of it as well. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, Tom. And unfortunately we're out of time for today. So I just want to thank you so much for just coming on the show and just giving us so much good information. And this was such a great conversation and so insightful. And I hate that we have to cut it here, because I'm like, man, this is great. We'll have to definitely have you back. And man.
So Tom, before we go, why don't you tell our listeners where we can find you?
Yes. So for anybody that would just, or is open to a discussion, no hard sell, just want to talk about safety, getting, protecting your business, your employees or customers, and getting everybody home safely to their families at the end of the shift, you can reach out to me direct at 815-994-7244. If you'd like to email me, it's just Tom, Tom, at HAAS Alert. HAAS is spelled HAASALERT.com. You can visit us on haasalert.com/towing. And again, I just want to keep you safe. I'll do anything I can to make you safer. Just let me know how I can help, and I'm a consider it done kind of guy.
Yeah. After talking with Tom several times now, Tom is definitely not a salesman. He is a believer. He believes in his product, and he really believes in this industry, and is looking to do the right thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, like I understand, to have our safety device, our safety cloud, a transaction has to occur, but you don't have to buy anything. Let's talk about, that's what I love about this podcast that we did today. We're talking about making things safer. If you're not talking about it and thinking about action plans to make it better, you have to put action behind the talk, but you're never going to make it better. So if we can talk, let's talk. I'll do what I can to help you. And if it makes sense to take next steps, you decide that, but I'll do whatever I can to help.
Yeah, so make sure you guys go ahead and check out the link where you can find out more about HAAS Alert Safety Cloud. Tom, are you going to be at any of the upcoming tow shows?
Yes. So coming up soon, June 18th through the 20th, I will be at the Wisconsin Tow Show. I will be at booth F, that's F like Foxtrot. And then following that, I will be at the Indiana Tow Show at the first week of August. Towards the end of August, I'll be at the Northwest Tow Show in Spokane, Washington. And then I'll also be at the Vegas Tow Show. I will be at the Baltimore Tow Show. I will be at the Cleveland Tow Show. And then I'm also going to be at the Tennessee Tow Show. And I'll also be staying for the Tow Museum, Towing and Recovery Museum Hall of Fame induction ceremony there with my good friend, Jeffrey Godwin.
We are looking forward to seeing you out there in person again, Tom, and we can't wait to hit the road ourselves. We'll be on the road this very shortly ourselves, and we'll see you in Wisconsin. That'll be the next time we're all together.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to see you.
Wisconsin, I hope you're ready for all of us.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to seeing all of you there.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. And of course, like and subscribe as always to keep the content flowing.
Yes, if you want to hear more of us. I don't know why.
Yes, you do.
I do.
Just for more great conversations like this, because we want to make sure we get you the best information out there for your tow business. So like and subscribe so we can continue to have more episodes and great guests like Tom on our show. So thank you, Tom, so much for coming on. And we will check you guys later.
Tom Parbs, ladies and gentlemen, HAAS Alert. Check him out. We'll share all the information on our socials on this page as well. They're doing some really cool stuff for the industry. They're really trying to protect us, trying to protect our providers, trying to protect our consumers, and trying to really make sure everyone goes home at the end of the day.
Yeah. So grateful to have him on, and just looking forward to seeing all the new things that are coming in the industry with HAAS Alert, and really just with all the changes. I know there's so many people, like you mentioned, TRAA, TOCERT, ERSCA. There's so many people, so many organizations in this industry working together to keep us all safe and protected. So looking forward to seeing everything that's coming on the horizon, and be on the lookout because honk is absolutely in the middle of everything. We want to be a part of it all. So be on the lookout. We've got some new things happening over here as well. Like Dennis said, make sure you continue to like and subscribe so you can be a part of what's going on here at honk. If you are not a part of the Honk Partner Network and you want to be, definitely we'll leave a link here in the description. But of course, you can always find us on our socials at honkforhelp.com. On our socials, you can find us at facebook.com/honkforhelp. You can also find us on Instagram at honk4help. If you want to be a honk partner, you can also find us at www.joinhonk.com and sign up for free. Few new things happening over at honk. We've got some new jobs, and that means more jobs, more volume for our current clients, but also a few different jobs, right?
Yeah, we got some fun stuff coming down. I want to welcome aboard our newest clients. Kimi, welcome to the Honk family, Kimi. Kimi is a locksmith service that is nationwide. You've probably seen their kiosks at your local supermarket or at gas stations and rest stops. And we're partnering with Kimi to help some of their motorists get back into their vehicles when they lock their keys inside their vehicles. We know that happens quite often here. Has that ever happened to you, Yvonne? Have you ever locked your keys in the car?
No, never once.
I locked my keys
like that.
I locked my keys in a tow truck once. That was embarrassing. It was actually in our lot. I had to go get, and my lockout kit was in it. Really embarrassing. No, I was getting ready to go on a job. I had just started the truck and the door locked behind me. Anyway, embarrassing. So you should be seeing some more lockout work coming your way in the near future. And to help you make sure that you have the right tools and equipment, we've also partnered with Zips Truck Equipment and AW Direct to get you some specials on lockout tools. So if you check your email, you should probably have an email for us, or you can reach out to Zips and ask them about the honk pages. We got stuff out there for you. We're trying to work out some deals so that you guys have the right equipment to get the job done, to make sure that we all go home.
Yeah. So don't wait. Go ahead and get your tools that you need now.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, if you are listening to this podcast for the first time and you are not a part of the Honk Partner Network, you can always visit us at www.joinhonk.com and sign up. It is free to sign up, of course.
Sign up is free. The requirements are all listed there. We really we want as many partners in the network as we can get, because the stronger our network is, the more we can move together, and the more we can move this industry together as one united voice.
Yeah. And if you like conversations like this, make sure that you also visit our Facebook page. We do a Facebook live show every second and fourth Wednesday called Honk Live. So you can visit us. It's at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we like to bring on, it's an informal conversation. We like to have fun, and we bring on guests every now and then to just give you the latest news in the industry and give you some up-to-date headliners from Honk. And just really like to have some good conversation. So make sure you guys join us there.
We do some giveaways. We got some Honk swag packs for our listeners and our viewers, and we're really just trying to have conversations about the industry and talk about the problems that the industry faces, and try and bring people together to solve some of those problems. That's really what we're here to do. We are here to come up with solutions that benefit everybody.
Yeah, so be sure to tune in live every second and fourth Wednesday at 5:30, 8:30 Eastern time. And of course, if you are just now tuning in to Get Hooked Podcast, this is our second season, so make sure you go back and check in on some of the older episodes for more information like this. You do not want to miss out on any of those episodes.
And I think just as soon as we wrap this recording, we're going to be headed to the airport, and we're on the road. I got my bag packed. I'm headed to the airport right now. We will be landing in just a couple of days at the Estra Tow Show in Lake George, New York. So if you're in the upstate New York area, if you're in the New York metro area, New England, all of Vermonters, our Pennsylvanians, come out and see us. We'll be out there. It's going to be a great time. It's an outdoor show at a beautiful location. There's family activities. It's a great, recreation town. Come out, hang out with us. Send the kids to the theme park, and you can come hang out with us and look at tow trucks and talk shop all day, because we know that's what you guys love to do.
Come hang out at the booth.
And then as soon as we get home from that, it's enough time to shower, turn around, and go back out. And we will be in Madison, Wisconsin. That is
Wisconsin Dells.
Wisconsin Dells. I apologize. We will be in Wisconsin Dells, June 18, 19, I believe, is the weekend.
Yep. 18, 19. Yep.
And so if you're listening to this, come see us. Come tell us you heard us here. If you mention you heard about us being at a tow show on the podcast, we might have a special prize for you.
Yes, we will. We will have a special prize for you.
We will have a special prize if you mention the podcast. Just walk up to us and go, "Hey, I heard you guys on the podcast."
Yes, but you have to whisper it like that.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in on this latest episode of Get Hooked. As always, you guys stay safe out there on the road and get hooked.
Get hooked, Yvon. I'll see you at the airport.
See you at the airport.